Well, few issues have evoked as much dismay, confusion, optimism and ambition as the government's push towards electrification of cars. Over the last 18 months, the BJP-led government has shown remarkable zeal and drive to make India a full electric car market in record time. Now, let's bring you up to speed with the key developments and statements made by various cabinet ministers over the last year and a half on this issue. It all picked up pace in April last year. That's when the then Power Minister Piyush Goyal proposed the first move towards electric vehicles. This is what he said, and I quote, "We are going to introduce electric vehicles in a very big way. We're going to make electric vehicles self-sufficient like the Unnat Jyoti by affordable LEDs for all. The idea is that by 2030, not a single petrol or diesel car should be sold in the country," unquote. A month later, that's in May 2017, the government announced a plan to introduce swappable batteries to make the adaptation to EVs cheaper and easy. To kick things in action, the government decided to procure about 10,000 electric vehicles in October of 2017. Government-owned energy service company Energy Efficiency Services Limited chose Tata Motors and Mahindra to supply 500 electric vehicles in phase 1. Now, just 1 month after that, Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari made headlines by rejecting the idea of swappable batteries. The minister felt that battery swapping was not a viable option for India. However, the momentum to electrify our mobility continued. The same month, that's November of 2017, NITI Aayog, along with Rocky Mountain Institute, released a report on electric vehicles. The report proposed a 3-phase approach for EV adoption by 2032. Now, last month, Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari was quoted as saying that NITI Aayog's electric vehicle policy was awaiting clearance from the cabinet. But just a month later, that's yesterday, a major twist came, with Gadkari announcing that there is in fact no need for a policy on electric vehicles. He went on to say that an action plan is already in place. So what exactly is India's status when it comes to shifting to electric vehicles? Joining us to discuss all of that and more is the CEO of the NITI Aayog, Mr. Amitabh Kant. Mr. Kant, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Sir, if I could start by asking you to explain to us, and I just, for the benefit of all of our viewers, recap what has happened over the past year and a half, from the first statement made by the then Power Minister Piyush Goyal to the statement made by Mr. Nitin Gadkari yesterday saying that India does not need an EV policy, we have an action plan. What is the difference between an EV policy and an action plan, Mr. Kant?
So, Shireen, what the minister said is that there is actually a lot of disruption happening in this sector. There are new technologies coming in every day. What was a lot of work went in for hybrid, then EV came in, tomorrow it may be hydrogen. I think similar kind of major radical disruption is taking place in the world of batteries, it's taking place in the world of charging stations, and the view was that we should continue to allow a lot of innovation, a lot of entrepreneurship to take place in all these areas. The problem quite often that happens in government is that we freeze, we are not technology agnostic. We start working on technologies, and in the process we lay down a number of standards by which we inhibit innovation and entrepreneurship to take place. And then what happens is that government officials...
Mr. Kant, to put this simply...
one second. Then what happens... Okay. Then what happens?
No, I'm interrupting you to just ask you, sir, very clearly, is the government now no longer forcing only electric mobility? Are you then saying that it's okay to come up with innovations that use biofuels, to move to hybrids as well? Is the government now no longer going to force auto companies to only go electric?
No. What we are saying is that the future belongs to a shared, connected and zero-emission world. For a better word, a zero-emission world. And our objective should be to lay the outcomes that we want reduction to this level, and we should clearly define that in these 11 of our 20 cities which are most polluted, this is the outcome which we want to reach. What technology you want to adopt should be left to the industry. Why should the government get into the business of technology? I mean, first and foremost,
well,
why should the government decide whether it should be hybrid or electric or hydrogen? We should just merely say that whatever you do, help us to do.
I want to understand. I want to understand what has led to this change in the government's approach, because this was the argument that industry was making, that it is not the job of the government to dictate whether we should do electric or we should do hybrid. Why? What has caused this change of heart within the government? Because all the ministers, starting from Piyush Goyal, who first talked about it, continue to say it has to be electric. Hence the idea of battery swapping, then the idea of interoperability. How has the government now decided to give up on an all-electric idea and policy that you were pushing?
No, Shireen, when you define outcomes, at the end, a policy can only lay down outcomes. When you lay down outcomes, those outcomes can be met by electric. They can be met by hydrogen fuel cell. And there is innovation. I mean, Nissan's new thing is about EV hydrogen fuel. So a lot of innovation is happening, and I think we should just allow that play to take place. A policy statement can be a broad, general statement, and I hope you agree with me with what I'm saying, that, a broad policy statement that the country should aim to be a sharing, connected and a zero-emission country, rather than pushing for technology.
I think industry is going to be very relieved to hear that, Mr. Kant, because this was the position of the auto manufacturers to start with, that why is the government dictating to us what technology we should move forward on? But I want to then ask you, because you said that you want to now focus on the outcome and you want to move towards a future of mobility where there is zero emission mobility. Now, what is the action plan towards zero emission mobility? Because let's be clear about, where we generate our electricity, we're largely coal-based and so on and so forth. Give me a sense of what it means when you talk about zero emission mobility.
So Shireen, what's happening, I mean, I think, and it's important to look at the global picture. Right now, there's only 1% of the total vehicles produced in the world, despite all this talk, only 1% of the vehicles produced today are either hybrid or electric. And that is the reason for that is that the cost of battery is still very high. At 273 kilowatt per hour, the cost of battery accounts for almost 45–46% of the cost of the car. So if you look at various analysis which has been done, it is predicted that by 2026-27, the cost of battery should fall from 273 kilowatt per hour to around 73 kilowatt per hour. And that is the point when, the cost of EV cars or hydrogen cars will be equivalent to a combustion car. And it will be very difficult to support, it will be, to push for zero emission cars. It will be very difficult to support this movement through subsidies from government world over. And what is important in the Indian context, because, you want to ask a question, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to, we're running out of time, and I know that you have another meeting as well, Mr. Kant, so I just want to understand now. So we are giving up on this idea of moving away from the IC engine by 2030, which even the Minister Gadkari has clarified that it was not the intention of the government to say that IC engines will be over and done with by 2030. A, that. And B, if you're talking about not just focusing on electric, then when it comes to the GST rates, because there is a differential for electric vehicles, the GST rate is much lower. Will you then push for lower rates even when it comes to things like hybrids, etc.?
Okay. So Shireen, the challenge is that combustion car account for about 49% of the total industrial production in India. They account for about 7.2% of our GDP. They give you 40 lakh jobs, and about 25% of the auto components, etc., that we export are from the automobile sector. So whatever we do, we should not impact, while we are making the shift, And you know, the advantage to India is that our per capita usage is very low. It's 20 per 1,000 combustion cars. In USA it is 920 per 1,000. So the shift from combustion to zero emission cars is easier in India's case, and it will be possible for India, as we push for our renewable energy targets of 175 gigawatts, it will be possible for us to charge these cars with clean energy at home through solar energy. And our objective is that the growth will be so enormous in future that should be met by zero emission cars in future.
Okay. All right, Mr. Kant,
Any other
will
question?
Leave it there then, sir. Thanks very much.
Any other question? I'm willing to respond.
We have many. We have many more questions, sir. So I'll end then by asking you.
Shireen,
I'll end.
No, Shireen.
Yes, sir.
You should have a special session on, electric mobility and zero emission cars, and I'll take you through a full presentation on that.
All right, sir. We look forward to that. Appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. That's Amitabh Kant saying that the government is no longer going to push only for electric mobility. They will push for zero emission mobility. That's the shift that's taken place in government policy. We'll take a break. How is Motown interpreting this big twist in the EV saga? We have two of India's leading auto giants, R.C. Bhargav, Chairman of Maruti Suzuki, and Shekhar Vishwanathan, Vice Chairman of Toyota Kirloskar Motor, joining us after this.